Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the second session. We're going to talk about healing from trauma in general, and there will be some examples which are related specifically to abuse, which we've already discussed in the first session. If you haven't seen that video, please check out Orshi's lecture. She is a therapist. Healing can have many different approaches, and there's no right or wrong path for anyone. There's only your path, and this is the main thing. Here are the information about speakers. Sister Nour, she's a therapist, and then myself, Klára, I'm a student. We put together this session, but I will be presenting it for the both of us. Why is this an important topic? The Prophet ﷺ taught us that if we see evil, we should change it. And the best thing we can do is change it with our hand. If we cannot do it, by your tongue and speak up against it. And if you cannot, at least in your heart, you should hate what is evil, and that is still the weakest form of faith. The most important things to keep in mind when supporting someone going through trauma or having been through trauma and during their healing journey is by making sure that you give them space to move at their own pace, even when it's hard to watch them. So there is no stage that you can bring forward for someone. You cannot save somebody in this journey. Everybody has to go through it themselves. So it's very important that you are there, you're present, you're not pushing them, and you let them move from one to the other. Listening without interrupting, without fixing, and without asking for details. Allow the person to reveal what they feel comfortable revealing. Allow the person to just relate to you their story and give them that space. This is actually something very helpful for people who've been through abuse because, again, they were being hurt by someone, so it helps them to rebuild trust, and you can prove that you are a trusted friend. For example, if your friend tells you that they've been through something in the past. I'm going to go with that narrative and that example because I think it's an easier one to imagine. So we're going to use that throughout the video. Respecting their choices, even if you would choose differently. Understand that basically you're understanding that even if you think you know better, it's not in your hand. You have to understand that they know what they need in this time. You can support them, you can ask them, how can you help? But let them, again, move at their own pace. Checking in generally and also gently rather than pushing for updates. So they don't need to actually relate to any part of their story. Nobody has a right to your story if you're the one who's been through something. There is not a person that actually owns anything. Like you don't owe them anything. So even if it is your parents, even if it is your spouse, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't teach us that they have any right to information from us. They have other rights related to us, but not when it comes to information necessarily. It's all right. This is your story. This is your experience, and you can share it with whom you choose and in your own time and at your own pace. Some of the examples of supportive responses you can see here on the screen. I believe you, and I'm really glad you told me. You didn't deserve what happened to you. You don't have to explain or justify anything to me. Again, because you don't owe me anything. I'm here with you. You don't have to go through this alone. The most important part actually is making sure that the person feels seen, heard, supported. I'm next to you and I've got you. And that's the kind of message you want to give to a friend. So do healing stages really exist? It's more of a process and not a checklist. By describing stages, it just helps us to understand what people are going through or help somebody understand where they're at and what could be the next step for them if they're ready to make the next move, to take the next step. But actually, there is no exact way of going about this. You may move back and forth between stages. It might be that you've developed and healed certain aspects in your life, and then you realize and yourself, and then you have a bit of a setback, you move back in that stage. But actually there are different areas. You're actually in more than one stages at once. You're almost healing different categories, different aspects of your life. It's not like a linear progression, which is so easy and simple. That is why the topic is so complex. But if we were going to put it into different stages, then Nour has compiled for us a few stages we can discuss. The first part is when a person realizes what they're going through, or realizes what they had been through, because sometimes people really try to shut out anything negative that they experience because it's hard to accept. So the way that they process and the way that they move on, instead of processing the information, is just ignoring it. Not everyone, but this is common. So that means that the first stage is about shock, and it's about gaining stability. Because at first the person might feel numb, they might feel disbelief, emotional shutdown, confusion or difficulty focusing, feeling disconnected from emotions or the body. So you might have learned about depression. It is very common in depression for a person to feel no emotion at all. They're completely shut off emotionally, and they find it difficult to connect to emotions. You're neither ever happy nor you don't feel any strong emotions, and it does not necessarily mean that the person is very sad, although usually depression does come with this emotion at a very strong level. But you might just feel completely numb and neither happy nor sad, neither end of the spectrum. So at that point, it's about connecting with your emotions again, learning how to connect with them again. That will be a task for later. When it comes to feeling disconnected from the body as well, a lot of people report having experiences where they feel like they're not even living their life, almost like they're looking at themselves from a different perspective. This kind of dissociation helps for the person again to basically numb the pain, the experience that they're going through, because it's so overwhelming for them. So you can understand why it's quite complicated. And if you're trying to support someone who's going through the aftermath of trauma, it can be quite difficult because you might not understand exactly where they're at emotionally. But as we said before, if you're there just to listen and support, that's already very helpful. So take it easy, one step at a time. So the focus of this stage should be safety. First of all, if the person is still in a dangerous situation, they need to get safe. And this is something that Orshi already spoke about in the previous video, so do check it out. Stability. Stability can be many different ways. She also spoke about this. It could be financial stability, it could be emotional stability, as we talked about the emotional aspect. So that might be learning emotional regulation. How can I feel my emotions, process them, and not let them run over my life, neither shutting them off completely. Finding a balance and learning how to handle our emotions, because a lot of people, maybe we already spoke about abuse. Many people get abused when they're children and growing up. So it's when you're developing, when your brain is developing, that you experience a trauma, and this changes your brain chemistry actually. So what happens is a person might not have learned how to handle their emotions. So this is a big task for them now as an adult, to learn how to deal with these different emotions that they were not able to handle before. And then reducing the overwhelm. So in the beginning, we just want you to become stable. We want the person to be calm, to be able to move forward to the next part, but reducing the fear and anxiety of that moment. The person who just moves out from a home where they experienced violence, abuse, even whether they're an adult now, whether they are teenagers, whether they're children and social services took them from the home. The first thing is that they need to calm down. Their nervous system is in shock, as we said. And if you've never felt this emotion, Some of the ways to describe it is you might feel all of a sudden very, very surprised, but then very fearful. So if you imagine a time when you were very much afraid, or very, very much surprised and shocked, and kind of merging these together. So the shock is kind of like a negative surprise, because I think the word surprise does connote a lot of positivity for many of us. When it comes to shock, it's more about this feeling of being overwhelmed by the event, by negative events, and even though the term seems like it's just one sudden moment, but here we're talking about this shock, this feeling staying with the person for a longer period of time. So this can show up in anxious behavior. So the person might be the fear might come out as anxiety. So you might see that they're maybe you're used to their tone of voice, and all of a sudden when they're talking to you, the way that they're speaking, it's very like they're very shaken up, like, oh my God, like this happened and that. And even if they're not telling you anything related to the story, but their voice is not stable, they don't feel calm, they're still overwhelmed, they still feel anxious and stressed. So that is one of the ways, and anxiety can show up in many ways. They could be anxious and afraid to leave the house. Now they're in a safe home, but they're afraid to go outside, even if what they experienced did not happen outside, but they don't feel comfortable and they don't feel safe. So these are just some examples, and it's a very interesting topic, but I would like to continue, so let's move on. Stage 2 can be pain, fear, emotional flooding. It's very common for people to all of a sudden, now that they're no longer numbing the emotions, to experience intense sadness and fear, anger or grief. So with shock, yes, you can deal with it. The first stage we spoke about, like when you feel numb, but then the second can be that you feel very strong emotions. So going from maybe that anxiety can actually, it's kind of maybe a bridge between the two. And here it's intense sadness. And after a traumatic experience, person might experience depression for a period of time. Fear hopefully does not develop into phobias if there is something specifically connected to the trauma that you've faced. A lot of people experience flashbacks all of a sudden, the intrusive thoughts or reminders. These are two types, like it can be also flashbacks where people literally feel like they're going through, they can remember the moments where they were hurt, for example, in case that the abuse was physically violent, as well. Maybe they remember being beaten, for example. I'm gonna put a lot of trigger warnings under this video, I feel like. So it can be quite a lot to handle. So flashbacks are very interesting, and I would advise you to research about them. The intrusive thoughts can also be negative thoughts in general, so this can be related to the trauma or otherwise. Heightened anxiety or hypervigilance, this I already spoke about, so it's kind of you going from the shutting down and showing numb emotions to feeling them and being flooded with them. What this stage needs is validation, not pressure to move on. So as a friend, I might say, I realize this must have been so difficult for you. I don't know what it feels like, but I'm here for you and I'm here to listen. I know this was very hard for you, and if you'd like to tell me anything, I'm here. If not, we can watch a movie, I can give you a hug. These are the things that would be practically the validation. You don't want to say that you can say that I understand, maybe, but really you don't. So it's better not to say that, oh, I understand, in terms of I know exactly what you're going through, because you don't know exactly what they're going through. Unless you've literally experienced the same trauma, the same abuse, even then your experiences are different. So even then, I would advise to say something like, you know that I went through something before, you name whatever it was. So I think I understand. a little bit of how you feel or what you're going through, but I'm just here to listen. You can tell me more. So it might be, sometimes it can be useful to connect with someone over the fact that we both went through something, to give the message that actually you're not just completely unaware of what they might be feeling, but most of the time you don't know what a person's going through because you're not in their exact situation. Your situation is going to be different, and you don't know how they handle things. You don't know the level in which you're able to handle something is different than theirs. If you're better maybe at handling it, you might belittle what they're going through, because with not intentionally, but saying that, oh, I went through that as well, you'll get over it, that's not helpful. Nobody wants to hear that you've been through worse and therefore no worries, because this is not necessary right now. And also it's very dangerous to start with, I understand because I went through blah, 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 because now you're talking about yourself. So are you here to listen and support, or are you here to talk about yourself? Make a decision. And that would be my friendly advice. Emotional containment. So this is not about, so we went from numbing, feeling nothing, to being superbly overwhelmed by our emotions. What we want the person to go to is a kind of emotional containment where we take the emotion, but let's imagine we have a box, we put all the sadness in this box, and we can be like, okay, this is my feeling, I feel sad, I can take a look at it, I can sit with it, I can understand it, I can show empathy towards it, but it's not going to overwhelm my life. Just because I'm very sad about what happened, it does not mean that I'm truly sad about the entire world. This is the difference between going to depression where you feel extremely like everything is negative, and sticking to, this was really bad. This thing that happened, this was really bad. I'm very sad about it, and I'm making efforts to feel better in general. Making efforts to understand it, understand myself, and to heal. I think this is a good step. And that's a very interesting topic. So I would, again, research. If you're interested in anything, the QR code at the beginning, make sure to scan it and send us your questions. And a lot of the questions have already been answered, and the Q&A was recorded, so inshallah it should be going online soon. But if you have any questions, you can send them in anytime. Inshallah, we will answer them as soon as we can. A therapist will answer them because they're the professionals. Okay, support and predictability. Basically, yes. So we just need stabilization, the people who are supporting, and we need the person to feel that things around them are predictable. A good routine can help a lot, make you feel calm, make you feel like, okay, things are all right now, I'm not in any danger. This is quite good. The third stage is confusion, self-blame, and meaning making. So what are these? The common experiences are dealing with conflicting feelings such as shame, guilt, fear, love, and pain. The fear and love and pain, this is related to relational trauma, because you might have had a certain attachment to your caregiver or your partner, but then they hurt you, and now you're very confused about what is love, what is pain, then you may be also afraid of them. So this is very complex. And then dealing with shame. A lot of people feel ashamed that they've been violated. So they might have it's a lot of work to go through that and sit with it and be able to work through it and heal from that, and the guilt as well. A lot of people blame themselves for what happened to them and think that there must have been something that I could have done. There is nothing that you could have done. Everyone is responsible for their own behavior, and under no circumstances does anybody, it is not excusable for someone to hurt you, and there's nothing that you could have done because you didn't do more than what you did. This is the situation. It is hard, and you've done your best, and it's okay. Whatever was your best, that is completely okay. Sorry, I'm sidetracked. Let's move on. So someone might have needed to hear that, maybe not, but we'll see. So a lot of people might be asking, why did this happen? It's kind of like, why did this happen to me? Kind of question. Again, the self-blame. So I think I spoke about that. Questioning judgment, worth, or identity. Yes, so a person might, for example, a relationship, let's say you marry, let's say a brother marries a sister and the sister turns out to be very abusive, maybe very manipulative, maybe degrading, maybe the sister has narcissistic personality disorder. And the way that they treat the brother is abusive. But at the end of the day, even if they get a divorce and he's finally safe from her and her influence, and is going through all of these things, he might start questioning his own judgment that, how did I marry this person? Why didn't I realize it sooner? There is no way that everybody realizes certain things at a certain point. There is no sooner. It's okay. Even if you had realized it a month in, a year in, 10 years in, even if you realize it a month after, you would still be blaming yourself. That why didn't I realize it sooner? It's okay. Whenever things happened, this is where faith in Allah does come in, that Allah knows the best time for everything. It's okay. And then, of course, self-blame can contain many other things, but let's move on. Questioning, judgment, yes, so the judgment and the self-blaming, it's like quite connected. Worth or identity. If you go through abuse, you're, again, the harm that's being caused, which we talked about in the previous session, it really affects your self-worth. Depends on the situation as well, how severely that is. If you grow up in an abusive home, you might grow up believing that that's all you deserve, really. Things that people say like breadcrumbing, that you deserve neglect, you don't deserve to be listened to, you don't deserve to be cared for or loved, because this is what your caregivers showed you. They showed you a lack of support and care. So you've learned that you do not deserve these things, and you don't learn how to ask for the things that you need because you were considered worthless, and you internalized the way that they treated you. And it's not just, this is also if there is abuse as an adult, but again, depends on the age of the person and where their level of development, how badly they're affected by different types of abuse and how long the abuse was. So it depends on many things, but generally speaking, most people do deal with a lot of self-worth issues and identity, like an identity crisis. So this stage often includes replaying events, searching for explanations, like why did that happen? This is kind of the meaning making that Nour is talking about, that you're trying to figure out how come this happened to me. Struggling with trust. So again, abuse involves another human being, and another human being has hurt you. And so you might feel it's completely valid, but you might feel like you just don't trust anyone because you don't know if the next person that you trust is going to hurt you as well. This is completely valid, but during healing, what we want to work on is making sure that you can slowly begin to trust people again. And it's also, trust is a process. We have to remember that, first of all, I can trust you with a very small thing, and then you can prove yourself. And then I can trust you with a little bit bigger thing, and you prove yourself. So you build trust. Don't trust somebody, for example, information. Don't trust somebody with a very deep story from your life, which is super important to you, if you don't know yet if they'll gossip it to everybody, because you don't know them very well. So what you will learn is how to share information and share your life with this person or yourself with this person. Slowly, step by step, number one. Number two, and the second thing is remembering that trust takes time. You do not have to trust the same person the same way who you just met 2 weeks ago in comparison to the person that you've been friends with for 2 years. This is not the same level of trust necessary. And self-trust. We could question our decisions, so now we have to instill confidence in ourselves that, you know what, we do make good decisions. Sometimes we make mistakes, but that's all right. You do your istighfar if you need, depends on the mistake, and you learn from it and you become better. and you're better at handling certain situations. So self-trust. Because again, a lot of people blame themselves, feel shame, so they have to learn to reconnect with themselves to feel confident and trust themselves and love themselves, etc. And this is where reclaiming power and self-worth is. So increased clarity about the whole situation, forgetting the meaning making and rebuilding self-worth, so that's clarity. Anger turning into boundary and awareness, so you're no longer, maybe if you dealt with this whole situation with having a lot of anger and perhaps you've been taking it out on everyone, which is not very healthy, then you might turn that into supportive boundaries, the boundaries that you need in your life towards different people, so that you feel safe around everybody, so that you have a comfortable life and a safe one and a peaceful one, so you can manage yourself better, your life better, and worship Allah even better, and gain a lot of benefit and be happy, actually. Reconnecting with personal strengths, rediscovering yourself, signs of feeling, improved self-trust, greater emotional stability, increased confidence in decisions. Integration and reconnection. So the stage looks like trauma becomes part of the story and not the center. You're no longer, and a lot of people, some people when they go through trauma, they start oversharing with everyone. If it's something that they step out of, and then it depends on the situation, but some people overshare. So when you're no longer beginning your story with this happened to me and how much it's affecting you, because now you've healed and you're moving on. So maybe at some point it might come up after a long period of time when you trust someone, and you might share with them a little bit of your story, but it's part of your whole life story. Not that it's a small part of your entire life story, and it's not your entire life story. So when the trauma is no longer overwhelming your perception of your reality and your past, but it's just something that happened to me in the past, I've worked on it, I'm still sorry that it happened, but I'm no longer crippled by that, or I'm no longer affected by that every single day in my daily life. Okay. And then greater emotional capacity, you're able to handle emotions better and self-regulate, etc. And able to connect with people. If you're able to trust people again, you're able to love more, able to have more people in your life. This is very good. Reconnecting with identity, relationships, and purpose. So we've already basically spoken about these things. Purpose also, because you might feel very lost. The person might feel very lost in the beginning. What am I going to do now? How's my life going to go now? Especially depending on what is the situation. It can be that somebody was abused as a child. They completely shut this memory off, and they find out decades later, and then they're like, oh my God, that happened to me. What do I do now? And they get very confused, and that's completely valid. And by the way, this is a general advice, and it hasn't been, I'm not sure if it has been said yet, but therapy is very, very useful. So if you have been through trauma, if you have been through abuse, especially both of these, especially in these cases, seeking out a professional who can help you as a professional is amazing. By the way, in the previous presentation, she included her contact information, and she's a Muslim therapist and she works online. So you can reach her from anywhere if you choose to work with her. Or again, there are many other Muslim therapists also, but you can also go to a non-Muslim therapist. Yes, so this is important. Purpose. So yes, because a lot of people might lose sense of where am I headed, and then it can be that they find out decades later. It can also be that you are in a relationship, a romantic relationship, and it turns out to be abusive quite soon, and you leave that relationship, and then you're confused, like, oh my God, how come I had this person in my life? What do I do now, etc. But again, you don't have to let this experience run your whole identity. So make sure, again, get the support that you need, and inshallah you will be able to work through that as well. But these are what we mean by finding purpose again, not to feel so lost, but again, recentering on pleasing Allah and any other goals that you had specifically dunya related, which is going to be very different for everyone. But in terms of the akhirah, we're working towards the akhirah. Trying to please Allah, we're trying to understand Allah, get to know Allah better. This is a good tip, but that's another session. Healing here focuses on choice, agency, and meaningful connection. Very important. Please look into agency more because I think it's a very interesting topic, but we don't have a lot of time for that today. And choice as well. You do have a choice over your life. You can decide what you're going to do next. Okay, I would like to close the session, but there are some extra slides here, so I will upload that in the video. I hope this was beneficial.